The history of the beer you drink today goes back 5,000 years. Between two rivers, a civilization was born from the mud. They invented writing. They invented the wheel. They invented beer and paid their workers with it. And they told the first story humanity ever wrote down about a man searching for immortality. This is the story of the Sumerians. 3,500 BC. Most of the world is still wrapped in deep silence. Small tribes in the forests of Europe, wandering herdsmen on distant steppes. No one is writing history. No one even knows what history is. But between two great rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates, along a fertile plain of mud and reed, the quietest and the greatest revolution in all of human history is about to begin. This is Mesopotamia. The word itself means the land between two rivers. And here, in what we call Iraq today, humanity built a city for the very first time. Not just a large village, a real city. With temples, markets, rulers, laws, and taxes. That city was called Uruk, and the people who built it called themselves the black-headed people. We call them the Sumerians. The origin of the Sumerians is still one of history's great unsolved mysteries. Their language, despite every tool modern linguistics possesses, is related to no known language family on Earth. Not Arabic, not Hebrew, not any Indo-European tongue. They appeared as if from nowhere. But nothing comes from nothing. Archaeology tells us they lived on these plains for thousands of years as small farming communities. Slowly they learned to control the floods, to build irrigation systems, to grow barley and wheat, and store it. And that surplus, that accumulation of more than they needed, transformed everything. From village to city, from farmer to merchant and craftsman, from tribe to state. By around 3000 BC, Uruk had more than 50,000 inhabitants, the largest city on Earth. Don't take that lightly. At that moment in time, this was the peak of all humanity. And at the center of that city, rising toward the sky in great step tiers, stood the ziggurat, temple, symbol, the meeting point of gods and men. 3200 BC. A Sumerian scribe presses a reed stylus into wet clay. Small, wedge-shaped marks, one after another. This single motion is one of the most revolutionary moments in all of human history. The birth of writing. The first written texts were not love poems, not prayers to the gods. They were receipts. 37 units of barley received from storehouse 3, 12 fish taken from a certain man, 5 goats delivered to the temple. As trade grew and grew, the human mind could no longer keep up. The solution was a clay tablet. At first the marks were pictures, small drawings representing an ox, a measure of grain, a jar of oil. Over time, those pictures became abstract. They began to represent sounds. And with that, humanity had a tool to carry knowledge across generations, to write history, to record laws. We call these marks cuneiform today, because the impression a reed leaves in clay looks just like a nail. Think about this. Every sentence you will ever read is a descendant of those first marks, pressed into wet mud on a river plain in ancient Iraq. The roots of every alphabet trace back to Sumerian. Every written word owes its existence to that humble accounting ledger from 5,200 years ago. But there is more. The Sumerians turned their eyes to the sky. They mapped the heavens at night, calculated solar and lunar eclipses, named the stars, and most of the constellations we still use today are their inheritance. The need for a calendar came from farming. When to plant, when to harvest. The answers were written in the sky, and the Sumerians learned to read them. They invented the wheel, or were among the very first to use it. It began as a potter's wheel. Then the transformation was inevitable. Carts, transport systems, trade. And with their irrigation canals, they turned desert into farmland, flood-holding dams, channels reaching every field, a feat of engineering that still draws wonder thousands of years later. So what was the life of an ordinary Sumerian like? The day began early, before sunrise. Breakfast was barley porridge or flat bread with olive oil and onion. In the evenings, fish or lamb, and beer. Yes, beer. In Sumerian culture, beer was almost sacred. It was given to workers as part of their wages, offered at the temples. The oldest known beer recipe in the world is recorded on a Sumerian tablet. Society was layered, but some rights were surprisingly progressive. Women could own property, conduct trade, appear in court, even file for divorce. And we're talking about a society from around 2500 BC. Yes, there were slaves, but there was also social mobility. A skilled craftsman, or a successful merchant, could rise. Children went to the Aduba, the tablet house, the world's first school. For hours they copied Cuneiform, learned mathematics. Records suggest discipline was strict. Teachers did not hesitate to use the rod. Some things never change. Set all of that practical genius aside for a moment. Because the Sumerians were not only farmers and engineers, they were storytellers. And the greatest story they ever told is the oldest written epic in all of human history, the Epic of Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh was the mighty, but ruthless, king of Uruk, half man, half god. He befriended a wild and free man named Enkidu. Together they fought legendary battles. But Enkidu died, and that death route hollowed Gilgamesh from the inside. For the first time, he understood his own mortality. For the first time, he was afraid. He set out to find immortality. He crossed mountains. He crossed seas. He stood at the gates of the underworld. At last, at the bottom of the ocean, he found a plant said to grant eternal life. He tore it from the seabed. But on the journey home, in a single moment of carelessness, a serpent stole the plant and fled. And Gilgamesh returned, empty-handed, mortal. This epic also contains a great flood. The gods decide to destroy humanity. Only one righteous man is warned, a man named Utnapishtim. He builds a great vessel, saves his family, and the animals. This story was written at least 700 years before Noah. What does the Epic of Gilgamesh tell us? 5,000 years ago, human beings wrestled with the fear of death. They felt the pain of losing a friend, they searched for meaning. Civilizations change, technology changes, but the deepest questions of the human soul always stay the same.